Barnaby sat on the edge of the harbor dock. His tail swept against the wood with a steady, rhythmic thud. The morning air carried the sharp scent of salt and drying nets. A few feet away, Mayor Higgins grunted, wrestling with a precarious stack of heavy salmon crates. The wood groaned under the weight. Barnaby watched, ears perked, sensing an opportunity to be useful. He trotted over, his nails clicking against the slick planks. He spotted a thick rope trailing from the base of the stack and clamped his jaws firmly around it. He braced his paws and pulled. The crate shifted. It wobbled once, twice, then slid toward the water with a sudden, sickening grind. Gravity took hold. The crate tipped over the edge and vanished into the harbor with a massive, hollow splash. Salmon erupted from the crate, slapping against the surface before darting away into the deep. Mayor Higgins froze, his arms still outstretched, watching the last of his cargo disappear. Barnaby let go of the rope. He tilted his head, his ears flopping forward, and let out a soft, low huff. He looked at the empty dock, then back at the mayor, his expression fixed in earnest, silent apology for the disaster he had just set in motion. Barnaby left the harbor behind, his trot quickening as he reached the village square. The mid-morning sun warmed the cobblestones. Near the center, Mrs. Gable worked at a long clothesline, pinning white fabric against the breeze. Barnaby saw a loose corner of a heavy quilt dangling near the ground, and seized his chance to be helpful. He grabbed the fabric, tugged once, and felt the line give way. The heavy material collapsed, draping over him like a shroud. He spun in a frantic circle, his legs tangling in the thick folds. He lost his footing, stumbled sideways, and collided with a stack of orange pumpkins. The impact sent the pile into motion. One pumpkin cracked against the stone, then another, and soon a dozen round gourds were rolling down the street with a hollow, rhythmic thumping. Barnaby scrambled, still half wrapped in the fabric, tripping over his own paws as he tried to regain his balance. He slid across the uneven ground, his momentum carrying him forward into the path of the rolling harvest. The village square, once quiet and orderly, became a chaotic slope of tumbling pumpkins, with the dog caught in the center of the accelerating debris. The rolling wave of pumpkins slammed into the baker's cooling rack with a thunderous wooden crack. The rack shuddered, wobbled on the uneven cobblestones, and tipped forward. A dozen golden apple pies were launched into the air. They tumbled end over end, a dizzying arc of crust and fruit filling. Barnaby skidded to a halt, his eyes locked on the flying pastries. He lunged, paws scrabbling for purchase on the slick, flour-dusted street, and sprinted into the center of the chaos. He leaped, snapping his jaws at a falling pie, but missed and belly-flopped into a pile of bruised pumpkins. The pies rained down, bouncing off stone walls and landing with wet, heavy thuds. Barnaby scrambled up, shaking flour from his ears, and dashed left, then right, trying to intercept the descent. He was a blur of frantic motion, sliding through pumpkin pulp and dodging rolling tins. Every attempt to catch a pie only sent another one skittering further down the hill toward the harbor. The village square was a flurry of flying crusts and panicked movement, with the dog at the epicenter of a widening, sugary disaster that showed no sign of stopping. Barnaby finally lunged, catching one escaping pie gently between his teeth. He skidded across the street, his momentum carrying him forward until he tumbled into the lap of a grumpy fisherman sitting on a bench. The pie landed with a soft squelch right on the man's knees. A thick silence fell over the square. The fisherman looked down, his face a mask of shock and irritation. He stared at the crust, then shifted his gaze to the golden dog sitting directly before him. Barnaby sat perfectly still, his tongue lolling out, his eyes wide and soulful, his tail thumping a steady, rhythmic beat against the cobblestones. The fisherman reached down, wiped a generous smear of apple filling from his beard, and let out a short, surprised huff. Then, he started to laugh. It began as a low rumble and swelled into a deep, booming sound that echoed off the village walls. Within seconds, the contagious noise spread. Shopkeepers stepped out from behind their counters, shaking their heads at the scattered flour and ruined produce, but their faces softened into wide grins. The frustration dissolved, replaced by a sudden, infectious surge of collective joy that filled the square. The sun dipped below the horizon, pulling the daylight away and leaving the harbor in shadow. One by one, the lanterns lining the docks flickered to life. A warm, orange glow bled into the square, washing over the flower-dusted cobbles and the remnants of the afternoon. Villagers moved through the space, stepping over the scattered pumpkins and discarded tins. Nobody reached for a broom. They simply navigated the mess, sharing nods and quiet jokes with their neighbors. The air felt heavier, anchored by the change in tempo. Barnaby trotted to the center of the square, his energy finally spent. He stopped near the benches and sat down. He did not look for more pies or more ropes. He leaned his weight against the legs of Mayor Higgins, who reached down and patted the dog's head. The mayor looked around at the ruined dinner plans and the chaos of the street, then back at the golden dog. The village had no fish for the evening and their laundry was a scattered heap. But as Barnaby let out a long, content yawn, the square felt warmer than it had in years. The community stood together under the flickering lamps, anchored by a quiet, shared peace.